1 minute, please sit down, everyone. I start.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
You okay?
Yeah.
Team? You started? So, hello everyone, welcome to our third call, where we have Vincent. Vincent Tunru is a UI engineer on Mozilla Privacy and Security Products team, working on tools like Firefox Relay and Firefox Monitor, and is going to talk about over a decade of anti-tracking work at Mozilla.
Yeah, thank you, Francesca. That was actually the first sentence of my presentation, just gone now. So I work on the Privacy and Security Products team. And so I want to start this presentation with a bit of a personal anecdote. My open source journey started with the release of Firefox 1.0, which was my first interaction with open source software. Later started using Linux, started contributing. First with translations. Later I became a software engineer. But I only joined Mozilla as an employee about a year and a half ago. So for this presentation, where I'm going to discuss a little over a decade of anti-tracking work at Mozilla, I'm going to be leaning a lot on the experience of my coworkers, specifically Luke Crouch and Max Crawford, other engineers on the Privacy and Security Products team. They wrote this blog post, so most of the content of this presentation is also in that blog post. So if you want to have a quick high-level recap, you can read that afterwards. It's also linked on the FOSDEM site, I think. But Luke has been at Mozilla for basically forever. Mozillian through and through, lots of institutional knowledge, so lots of the content is by him. Max did most of the illustrations, so that's credits, where credits is due. Tracking, it can be beneficial. I want to do one short, scary slide, and then the rest will be more positive. But I want to take a bit of a moment to discuss the risk of tracking. Why are we actually trying to minimize the harmful effects of tracking? So tracking it's a personal risk. You can fall victim to phishing attacks, for example, or the people around you can fall victim to it. So if more of your data is known, or if your data leaks, it can be used to impersonate you and get, for example, people around you to transfer large sums of money or whatever. So if, for example, if someone contacts my father and says, hey, it's your son, could you please wire me 5,000 euros? It's a lot less believable than if they were to say, hey, it's Vincent, I just got fired from Mozilla. Hopefully it never happens, but could you wire me 5,000 euros because I'm in money trouble or whatever? That's a lot more convincing. So data can be abused, but it's also more of a societal risk. So ransomware has been in the news a lot recently. Costs a lot of money. It can even be used to convince people not to vote if they're aligned with a certain political party or etc. So there's risks involved with tracking. The rest of my presentation should be more positive. I'm going to discuss what we're doing to minimize those harmful effects to allow you to confidently use the internet carefree. So there's a variety of ways to track you. Historically, a lot of attention, both inside of Mozilla and outside of Mozilla, has been given to tracking cookies. So I'll start my presentation with an overview of what we've been doing there. And then I'll go over these other forms as well. So cookies, for those who don't know, cookies and a bunch of related technologies that are all called cookies. They're bits of data that websites can store on your computer, which can be useful. So if you load a website and the website sees a bit of data that proves that you are you, it can decide to give you your shopping cart or your private messages or whatever and not show someone else's. So that's a good thing. But it can also be used to track you if you don't want that. So every website you visit can set cookies. But not just that website. Websites can also embed other websites. So for example, a website could contain a YouTube video, and then YouTube can set cookies as well. It can contain ads, and then those are often also served by a third-party website, can also set cookies. Websites can even embed other websites without you seeing them. So, for example, with the goal of tracking you. So those can also set cookies. So we've been clamping down on that primarily through Firefox. So I'll start my overview with Firefox private browsing, introduced in 2008. after Chrome was released, which had an incognito window. But a private browsing window is basically a window that, as soon as you close it, forgets everything you did in there, forgets the cookies that were stored as well. It's often jokingly referred to as porn mode, but it's definitely also an anti-tracking tool. So, for example, my girlfriend uses it as such. She's a kind of ridiculous Harry Potter fan, participates in international pub quizzes about Harry Potter level. But she's also a high school teacher. And so sometimes she'll need to show, a video of something that happened in the news recently. And she'll go to YouTube, share her screen, and show a YouTube video to her class. And she doesn't necessarily want her entire private life, which is entirely Harry Potter, shown in the YouTube recommendations. So what she does is at home, when she's, listening to YouTube, to Harry Potter music or ASMR or podcast or whatever on YouTube, she'll open a private browsing window and do that thing in there. And then if she closes it, then YouTube can't correlate those two sessions, so won't show Harry Potter recommendations when she's sharing something with her class. Another reason why I'm starting my overview with this private browsing window is that we interpret, if someone uses a private browsing window, we interpret that as a signal that someone wants less tracking and is willing to accept some more breakage. And so, unfortunately, often when we're trying to block tracking, websites assume that they can track you and then build their functionality on that. So there's a risk if you combat that you break the website. So whenever we want to introduce new measures to combat tracking, we'll first introduce it in private browsing, see how much it breaks there, and then later we can try to port it over to your regular browsing window. So that's why I mentioned private browsing first. In 2013, we introduced more granular cookie control. So you could make that trade-off yourself as a user. You could choose, for example, to not use cookies at all. Lots of breakage. You wouldn't even be able to log into websites anymore, but also remove that tracking vector. You could also choose to, for example, not load third-party cookies. So if you visit a website, then that YouTube video that's in there might not be able to set cookies. Less breakage, but still quite a bit. So, it gave you that control, which is helpful, but it's also kind of out of the way. You have to know of these options. You have to understand what they do, understand their risks, and just making that trade-off between breakage and less tracking isn't a great one in the first place. So later on, we also introduced a block list, so that that's basically a list of cookies that we know are just used to track you, don't provide any functionality for you as a user, and we allowed you to block those cookies. So less breakage, doesn't prevent all tracking, but helps there. And then not too long ago, 2021, that's really state-of-the-art anti-tracking cookie work. We introduced what we call total cookie protection. So that doesn't actually block cookies, but for example, if you visit youtube.com and then later visit a different website that also includes a YouTube video, they'll both have cookies, but they'll be different cookie jars. So YouTube will still not be able to correlate those two sessions. So that helps prevent that tracking vector without actually breaking it, because from YouTube's point of view, they still have cookies. So that's the work so far. Obviously, the timeline here stops at 2021. We're in 2023 now, but there's still the future. So we're always working on more things to combat that. But that's my overview of cookies so far. With that, let's move on to IP addresses. So IP addresses are basically addresses for every device that's connected to the internet. They're relatively stable. They can change, but most of the time, most devices have the same address. And this is a pretty strong identifier. Like, for example, I'm the only one that uses this phone, often has the same IP address, so everything you can link to that IP address is quite sure to be me. Same goes for this laptop, for example. And they're not just able to tools to link you, but they're also often they can be correlated to your geographical location. So it's not super specific, but when I'm at home, they'll know which you can deduce from my IP address which city I'm in. So yeah, that's the risk of IP addresses. So what have we been doing there? Well, like cookies. Oh, I forgot this. So the thing with IP addresses, it's inherently, if two devices connect to each other via the internet, they can see each other's IP addresses. And so that means by virtue of connecting to a website, that website will be able to see your IP address. And again, websites can embed other websites, so those embedded websites can also see your IP address. So just like we did for cookie protection, we introduced a block list of IP addresses that are known to track you and not provide other functionality. As I mentioned, first in private browsing, later also gave you that option in your regular browser window browsing, which is good. If you never even connect to a tracking server or to an ad server or whatever, it can't track you, it can't see your IP address. But obviously, we can only do this for connections that don't provide any functionality. We can't start blocking YouTube.com because you won't be able to view that video anymore. So to battle that, we in 2019 we introduced Firefox Private Network, which sits in between your browser and the website you're connecting to. And so instead of connecting directly to that website, you'll connect to Firefox Private Network, and then Firefox Private Network connects to the website you're trying to view. And then from the point of view of that website, it will see the IP address of Firefox Private Network. And so in 2020, we expanded that to your entire device with Mozilla VPN, which protects not just your browser traffic, but everything on your device, and you can also use it on multiple devices. Yeah, so that's our IP protection so far. Yeah, then I'll move on to email addresses, which is the fun part because I work specifically on Firefox Relay, a product here that I'll discuss in a second. But first, this a question that blew my mind when Luke first mentioned it. But email addresses, they feel relative, like you can easily create a new email address, right? You go to gmail.com, enter a username and a password, and you've got a new email address. So they feel like they're easy to change, but in practice, you've probably changed your house address more often than you've changed your email address, which is like, I've moved a lot, like, I don't know, 6 times in the past 10 years maybe, but all that time I've been reachable through via the same email address. So if you had that on file, there's so much history about me that you know via that email address. So it's a pretty stable identifier, and it's cool if you block all your third-party tracking cookies and you hide your IP address, but if you then go on and sign in with your email address, they can just correlate that back together. And this happens, for example, if you go to an online store and you buy clothes or whatever, and you sign in with your email address and then have the clothes delivered, from the point of view from that store, you're a very attractive customer. Like, compared to some rando off the street, you're far more likely to make another purchase there than some random person is, right? So what that store then does is they go to Instagram or whatever, and they're like, hey, here's an advertising campaign. Here's also a list of all the email addresses of our customers. Could you please show those ads to those customers? And so from the point of view of that store, that's great news. They can advertise to you. You're a high potential customer. But from the point of view of Instagram or Facebook, Meta, whatever owns it, it's even better because they have not just your activity on Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp, etc. They also know, hey, you're a customer of that store and of any other stores that have done the same. So lots of ways to track you, and that's the voluntary part, voluntary data sharing by third parties. But in 2018, I believe, we introduced Firefox Monitor, which basically it keeps track of data leaks that happen. And if you sign up for Firefox Monitor, it will warn you if your data was found in a data leak, if there was a hack or whatever, to remind you, hey, maybe you want to change your password. But what we saw is that many people use the same email address at different services. So if there's data leaks in different services with the same email address, you can link the two data leaks, the data in the two data leaks, you can link them together and know that they're about the same person. And many people even, probably not all of you, but other people also use the same password across different websites. So even if there's not a data leak in a different website, by using your email address and your password, they're still able to extract data from those other websites. So that's obviously not great. So in 2020, we introduced Firefox Relay. And what basically Firefox Relay does is it provides you with a unique email address per service. So if you have a sign-up form, you need to leave your email address. You hit the Relay button, and it will generate a new email address. So I know ZQF4 0@mosmail.com, for example. And it will forward all email that goes to that email address to your true email address. So the store will still be able to communicate with you, send you emails at that address, but they won't have your actual email address on file. And so if there's a data leak there, your data can't be linked to your data elsewhere because you have two different email addresses there. So that's Firefox Relay. Yeah. Oh, actually, I'm doing well on time. You're welcome, Francesca. So then lastly, phone numbers. So kind of similar thread, right? It was super annoying when I started to use Relay, and cool, you can leave your email address, and I'm like, haha, I've got my Firefox Relay address, you can catch me, and then they're like, can you give your phone number too? Bit of a shame. So what we did is late last year, we introduced phone masking for Firefox Relay, added this graphic to our website, but it works similar to email masking. You get a phone number mask, so a new phone number, and all the text messages, all the phone calls that go to that phone number will be forwarded to your true number without having to share your true phone number. And so if you get, for example, a text message saying, hey, it's your bank, could you please and change your password, go to this website and change it, that's an additional signal where you can see, well, this is not actually my true phone number, which my bank has, so this is probably a scammer. This is a pretty new addition. So unfortunately for probably most of you, also for myself, especially given that I work on it, it's not available outside the US and Canada yet, but hopefully soon. Yeah, so the point there is lots of this work is like the broadening of the scope beyond just tracking cookies. That's all quite recent works. You saw like 2018 onwards, we started to broaden our focus. That's also when the security and privacy products team around then started. So, yeah, we're not done yet, obviously. This is the overview of the timeline so far. And, yeah, if you have any ideas of what we can do, do leave them on Mozilla Connect. And that's, I think, everything I had. Damn, my practice was so much slower.
Thank you very much. And so, does anyone have any questions?
So, especially with the IP and email protection, it really seems like you are the single point of failure. What do you do to mitigate any risks there?
So the question was if that's what you, yeah. So the question is if especially for Mozilla VPN and Firefox Relay, Mozilla is kind of the single point of failure there. Yeah, that's true. So the point of failure here is, for example, for Firefox Relay, if you're, imagine we're doing everything to prevent it, but imagine there's a data leak at Firefox Relay. What then happens is your email address still gets public, which is annoying, obviously. But you're basically back at where you were before, right? But there's just one place where it could fill, i.e. Firefox Relay, rather than all those places that store your other email address. So yeah, it's annoying. Ideally, we'd have, I'm not sure, I'm sure Luke probably has a couple of ideas around minimizing that we might look at some point. If you have, it looks like you have an idea. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I was saying if we're a central place that have lots of email addresses, obviously we become a bigger target. That is true. I wouldn't say like right now Firefox Relay and VPN as well aren't that big compared to like there's far bigger data vaults. But that's definitely something we're aware of and want to minimize. I think right now, at least for me personally, for me personally, that it's still worth it, right? The risk is smaller for using Firefox Relay. For if I want to order a ticket, for example, like a concert ticket, I'll give them a relay address, they'll forward me the ticket, and I'm done with it, and I never need it again. For your, if you're interacting with your bank, for example, I would use your actual email address. So it's, yeah, there's definitely a risk calculation to make there. Nothing is all these products are not a perfect solution. I think that's basically the thread in all this. It's all about trying to find that balance, like with the trying to block cookies, for example. It's all trying to find this balance between how much tracking do we want to allow and how much breakage do we want to allow. And there's always tracking that we can't prevent, and there's always downsides of our anti-tracking measures that we can't prevent. So, yeah, I wish I had a better answer, but that's it.
We have a question also in Matrix.
Okay.
It currently doesn't work with shortcuts.
Okay. So Danny on Matrix is asking that is asking about Firefox relay phone number masks not working with a bunch of tools. That is something we're aware of and working to fix for those who are familiar with phone number masking. Yeah.
So my question is, is it correct to state that at the moment none of the services we demonstrate actually treat our data end-to-end, as in end-to-end encryption, so that you can't see our data? And following question to this question is, do you have any plans to implement end-to-end protection for users? Is it even realistic in this space?
I was going to. So the question is, do we end-to-end encrypt the data we're handling? Obviously not applicable to everything, like cookie, etc. Not. For emails, that's basically not possible because because we need to know your email address to actually be able to forward email. We don't store the emails we forward, so we get them, forward them to you, and forget about them. So, damn it. VPN, actually, I'm not sure. Maybe Basti, where are you? No. Is that encrypted? I think your connection via VPN is encrypted, right?
VPN works in a way that you generate, we're using one.
Yes. Sorry for putting you on the spot, Basti.
Hi. So the Mozilla VPN works by using the WireGuard protocol. So on the client, you generate your own private key, and you only upload the public key to the Mozilla VPN network. And then during the server handshake with a partner, you generate a session key. So essentially, even if your public key gets leaked, we can't see anything.
Yeah, so VPN is end-to-end encrypted. We can't see your what you pass through there.
Hey.
Hi.
I wonder, how does Firefox Relay prevent spam? What kind of mechanism does it use to catch spam?
So there's a basic spam filter. We make sure that if we forward our email and your email and you mark it as spam in your inbox, Firefox Relay gets a signal and stops forwarding emails to that email address because it's spam.
Does it use Spam Assassin or RFMD or?
I wouldn't know. So the question was, what service do we use to detect spam? Come to our matrix and I'll find out for you. Our backend engineers will know, but I'm not involved with that part of the implementation. But we do have a number of anti-spam and anti-abuse mechanisms in there, because obviously we don't want to get blocked by other people as well.
Thank you for the talk. Might sound like a stupid question. You mentioned the 3 or 4 products like Relay, VPN, and Monitor. Are they free, including the VPN?
No, so the VPN is paid. I would also recommend you not to use a free VPN. They're almost all shady. Quite a few of the paid ones are also pretty shady, actually. No, so the VPN is, I believe, if you pay annually, I think €5 a month. I see not, so that's good. Firefox Relay has a free plan, which gives you just 5 email addresses. So that works, but then if you want to give every service a unique email address, that's not great. But it costs €1 a month. and monitor is free. Yeah. And so part of this is also part of what we're doing at Mozilla is building these privacy protecting tools. We're also trying to find ways to have those finance themselves. So that's what, it's not, we're not trying to sell ads or anything. You pay for it, you're the customer. That's the idea there.
So I think it's pretty obvious that the technologies that are being used to track us now kind of almost require us to have a sort of centralized entity to sort of resolve it, whereas cookie protection could be kind of done decentralized. And that obviously makes Mozilla as an organization a kind of a target of critique, I guess, because you become centralized to some sort of tracking. Is there some sort of track or something that happens at Mozilla to mitigate the risks of being a single entity that could store too much information? Like, for instance, in terms of relays, there is a separate entity that, or an entrenched thing that tries to ensure that you don't store too much data, so that at least you can't kind of try to monetize it yourself.
Everyone can hear it, right? One strategy there that we have as Mozilla, we have our lean data practices. So that means collect as little data as possible. That's one way to mitigate that. So for example, in Firefox Relay, it's why we only store your email address. We don't store the emails we forward. You can choose. So you can choose to store associations like which mask did I use on which website, but you can also choose to have that stored locally if you have the extension, or just not store it at all. In terms of it's definitely something we'd like. I'm not sure of initiatives going on there, and we do. I lost my train of thought, but yeah.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, this last question we have time off. Please put the rest in the matrix room. Thank you.
Well done.
These are my notes. That's all right.
Next computer stop.
Yeah.
I think we had 100% attendance for the school, like 100%.
Yeah.
Like fraction, like, oh God, I'm thinking for mom, I need to get it, make sure No. And then obviously you're live and you're going to start.
It connects. You have an adapter? Can I use your adapter?
I would totally use Android, but that was how it looked for me.
Wonderful.
Let's see if it's on the screen. Okay. No?
Right. You can't enable it yourself, right? Yeah.
Why doesn't it work?
Yeah, I think most countries, I think the US.
You turn on your second screen. It's not on, I think, this button. Duplicates. It's duplicated. So why doesn't I see it?
Basically what people were asking about concerns or cloud transit in most cases into that centralized party. So it's in countries where, for example, ISPs aren't that trustworthy, like the US, probably the countries as well, it makes more sense. Whereas in the Netherlands, I think people would prefer, like, my ISP is very trustworthy. So I guess that's why they're more interested about that. It's a different department.
I'm sorry, I don't know about but it's got over there.
Yes, it's coming.
Yes.